Ooh, a 7 riders you'll meet video. This'll be fun. Who doesn't love a good old-fashioned roast, except maybe those being roasted, I suppose. Now, I mention that because today we're poking fun at cafe racer retro bike riders, and it would seem that they take themselves way too seriously. Do you guys remember that post video we did a while back revealing the Gixxer 250 in all of its disgusting glory? Yeah, well, a customs shop that will remain nameless reached out after we released that video, wondering why we did a hit job on them. The funny thing is, we didn't take aim at them specifically, which means one of two things. First, perhaps our impression was so on point that it was like we were holding up a mirror and they saw the yawing chasm where a soul should be and they were trying to fill it French press coffee and beard wax, and they weren't prepared to face such existential dread. Or secondly, it meant that they simply don't have a sense of humor and got their delicate fifis hurt by the mean old internet talkie man. Look guys, if any of this stuff is hitting a little too close to home, just remember that it's all in good fun, and we've savagely roasted just about everyone and everything on this channel. I mean, Royal Enfield simps right now are literally on suicide watch. I mean, you saw what we did to the poor old Versus 650, right? Whew, okay. Disclaimer over. Y'all better grab your pomade flannel shirts because we're going full hipster today. Number 7, the well-done cafe racer build rider. You've seen these guys around, though they're pretty few and far between, like diamonds in the rough. These guys actually understand what makes a cafe racer, which, if you're wondering, requires a keen eye for detail, solid wrenching skills, and probably some painting skills since you're going to be working with older motorcycles most of the time. Oddly enough, the more well-done cafe builds tend to be on smaller parallel twin UJMs like the Honda CB350 and the Yamaha XS650, though occasionally you'll see the odd CX500. This rider has spent months, if not years, carefully thinking about their bike, what the unifying aesthetic is, and then selecting only the best parts to fit that ethos of the build. These guys spend a crap ton of cash on new wheels, new forks, new brakes, bars, lights, exhaust seats, and more. Their bike might make only 40 horsepower, but god dang it, they're gonna bolt Brembo stylemas and Olin forks because they need the silver and gold and nothing else will work. What's another $4,000? That's just a drop in the bucket at this point. I mean, they've got a PBR keg they need to get topped off because they couldn't possibly turn their period correct tools without the appropriate lubrication. These guys prefer to be identified as builders since what you see they've built is a truly work of art and they don't actually ride it. I mean, have you seen the borked ergos on their bikes? Also, what's going on with the tank shape? Has anyone even sat on this thing? Oh, it's just meant to go in the unfurnished loft apartment with concrete floors and a twin mattress from IKEA because it's the only thing they could afford at that point. Their daily ride is a pedal bike with a 2-stroke bolt-on engine. Number 2 is the polar opposite of the well-done cafe racer rider. It's the very, very badly done cafe racer rider. This is the person you see more often because they basically didn't spend a dime on their build, so they can afford more than instant ramen. The problem with this rider is that while they draw inspiration from the same Instagram photos as the proper builder guy, they don't understand what makes that bike special. They just rip a bunch of stuff off the bike with a sawzall or a hammer. Some of the hallmarks of a crappy cafe build are used Clubman bars or even flipped stock bars because, again, the rider's not made of money. They'll also pop white wall tires on a bike and don't keep the white walls white due to some fading and beige rubber. There's a 100% chance that the bike's running straight pipes with heat wrapping because the stock pipes were too quiet and sourcing new ones was taking too long. Did they tune the carbs? No, of course not. What even is a carburetor? Based on Spite's experience, I'm more convinced that they're not methods of vaporizing fuel and rather a mystery money pit that even when working right, it's not working right. Now, you might also find a bad cafe build on a modern motorcycle like an XSR 700. If so, they probably popped the headlight guard and skid plate on the bike and called it a cafe racer. First of all, that's a scrambler. And secondly, I'm gonna give you an F for effort with the note that you didn't understand the assignment. As a certified builder myself with a museum-worthy bike in my portfolio, leaving that much stock on a motorcycle is grounds for immediate beanie confiscation. No PBR for you. But you know what I do have for you? The solution to all of life's problems.
At Yammie Noob, we say get Busa now for all your motorcycling needs.
Yammie Noob? Busa now?
It's your Busa. Use it when you need it.
Yammie Noob is right. It's my Busa and I need it now. It's my Busa and I need it now. It's my Busa and I need it now.
It's my Busa and I need it now.
It's my Busa and I need it now.
It's my Busa and I need it now.
It's my Busa and I need it now. If you have a structured settlement but you need a Busa now, get on over to YammieNoob.co and sign up today. We'll buy all or part of your structured settlement so you can have a Busa now and get back on track with bills or other things you might have left slip by the wayside. The third rider you'll find is the rider who wanted a bike with some old school charm but none of the headaches. We'll call this the lazy retro boy. This rider has neither the time nor the patience to mod their bike. They just want to ride their motorcycle, which, hey, I totally get that. I kind of fall into that camp myself. These riders tend to be less loyal to their bikes. You'll see them on anything from Triumph Bonnevilles, Yamaha XSRs, and if things have truly gone off the rails, maybe a Royal Enfield Interceptor or a Continental GT. The holographic version of the lazy retro rider shows up to bike night on something truly strange like a Janus. It looks like it rolled out of the 20s and it's got period correct power, though they do have a 450 now, which means it might be able to keep up with the Kia. Is that worth $15,000 with all the options? No. But this rider has to overcompensate with their store-bought retro bikes, so they end up spending crazy money on everything. This bike's expensive, their gear's expensive, their jeans are skinny, and their designer flannel shirt is custom tailored. But hey, they're riding around on their motorcycle while the builders are stuck inside, tearfully watching them have fun like a real-life Squidward meme. The lazy retro rider is putting down miles. Who's got the right of it? We'll never know. At least I hope to God we won't. I'm not growing a beard. Number 4 is a strange and rare one, seeing as how this rider has literally traveled through time. How did they manage to break the laws of time and space? They did it the hard way. They got old. Yep, when you think about it, aging is time travel, which makes everyone but Keanu Reeves a time traveler. Anyways, the old time traveler bought himself a bike back when UJMs were still available new on showroom floors and have kept it through the years. Maybe it's a Bonneville, maybe it's a CB750, or maybe it's a Goldwing. Regardless, the bike's probably been around for tens of millions of miles on it because this rider takes a spin on it whenever the weather is nice. They never ride it in the wet and they never ride it cold, which explains why the bike is in such great shape. It's never been modified, and the only thing that's got done and rebuilt are the carburetors because, they just don't make them like they used to. This rider will also have an encyclopedia of oil change and service records along with a worn out and dog-eared factory service manual. Their old bike probably isn't their primary ride anymore, and they'll trade new bikes often enough to make you wonder how much money they're pulling down. But they'll always have their old ride in their garage. This rider will also complain about the modern trappings of bikes, saying that it's all pointless and who needs modern suspension anyways. Yeah, drums will stop a bike, but slightly slower than the concrete pillar you're about to slam into. Not everything from the old days was better, old timer. Number 5, the UJM beginner. We've actually got a fair few of these people in our Discord server, or at least one that posts about his CB750 often enough that it's making me think there's more of them. You've probably seen these in your travels. They wanted to start on something that was cheap, that was their first and foremost motivation for selecting the bike they did. What bike? Probably a CB750 because they googled reliable and cheap motorcycle and saw it on a whole bunch of lists. Not coming to the Church of the Noob and getting schooled by yours truly. I mean, we've probably done dozens of lists like that. The other choice is a CB350, which is the reasonable choice if they're a little worried about 47 horsepower getting away from them. This rider chose the way of pain. They're trying to learn how to ride on a bike that's the motorcycling equivalent of the Model T. It's got disc brakes for sure, but they're solid rotors with a single piston, meaning they're only about 40% more efficient than pulling a lever and dropping a boat anchor on the back of your bike. We've already talked about the suspension, but beyond that, there's a litany of mechanical jobs that a noob will need to learn. This is the rider who wanted the dark souls of motorcycling experiences. Take pity on the UGM beginner. Their bike will always be clapped out and held together with zip ties, but at least they're on 2 wheels. Number 6 goes to the chopper guy. No, not the bandana and tank top chopper, dude, the actual chopper rider. Believe it or not, there is a difference. The cruiser chopper people are almost expected, but the UJM chopper rider is a bizarre aberration nowadays, but they're still carrying the torch from the original chopper riders back in the day. If you didn't know, there's a lot more to choppers than the Tuttle screaming at each other and the chair throwing meme. You might Google chopper motorcycle and see a bunch of Harleys with 14-foot long forks, but you'd be surprised at how many choppers out there have parallel twins or even inline fours. The problem with the UJM chopper rider is that their bike is basically what you'd expect to look like from custom Harley, and they're constantly stuck having to explain how their bike is actually different. I mean, maybe they've gone full Bo Suzuku and have a bike painted in rainbow unicorn diarrhea with colors so bright it scars the retina. But no matter how carefully they build the bike, no matter how cool as it ends up being, some normie who doesn't know a thing about bikes will walk up to them and say, "Nice Harley, dude." Last up today, it's the Sportster rider. Let's be real, for the last 50 years, Harley has obstinately chosen to ignore the march of modern technology, resulting in perhaps the most authentically retro motorcycle that's both a complacent and damning critique. The Sportster rider has been the motorcycle industry's punching bag for decades. They've had to deal with the Dyna and touring riders dunking on them for riding a girl's bike, and then they've had sport bike riders laughing that their 883cc engine can only make like 40 horsepower. They've been taking so much abuse for so long that collectively, Sportster riders wrote a manifesto. It was riddled with copium in defense of their chosen steed. They said that they were going to rise up one day and make us all sorry. They said they were going to show the world how cool the Sportster actually was. And the only reason why you've never heard of the great Sportster revolution is because they were all too slow to make it meet up in the end. Sorry, Sportster people, at least you still have the 1275 kit to make your bike cool. Fact: in a study by the Smell and Taste Treatment Research Foundation, the scent women found most arousing was Good and Plenty candy mixed with cucumber. Try that one on for size. Goodbye.
Keep watching Yammie Noob!